Global unity on world finances was the key theme of the G20 summits in Toronto. But what was agreed to on the major issues was hardly the declaration of a uniformed approach to a shared problem.
Every country will chart its own unique course, but make no mistake, we are moving in the same direction. As I reiterated to my colleagues, after years of taking on too much debt, Americans cannot and will not borrow and buy the world's way to lasting prosperity.
In the end, that's what the Canadian meeting of the G20 will be remembered for, giving countries the green light to deal with their fragile economies on their own terms. Whether to cut deficits or continue to spend was such a contentious issue, it dominated the earlier G8 talks and quickly spilled into the G20 discussions. But leaders were quick to play down any rift.
It's a mistake to think that somehow this summit has been about a different approach between the Americans and the Europeans. The whole point of this summit, with the backing of the IMF and the work that they've done, is that we need to do things in a coordinated way across the world to maximize growth.
So, nations can now continue to spend on stimulus measures if they see fit, or start slashing their deficits if that's what they choose. A big win for Canada, the United Kingdom, and Germany, who are keen to introduce austerity measures. However, the leaders did all agree that making debt reduction should be a priority, with the wealthiest nations given 3 years to reduce their deficits by 50%. Another issue countries are now allowed to go on alone: bank tax. There had been hopes that the leaders of the 20 wealthiest and emerging economies would act with one voice and implement a global bank levy, a fund financial institutions would pay into and then be able to withdraw from if the economy took another turn for the worse. But what's perhaps sparked the most disappointment is what was not in the final communiqué.
Well, the communiqué for the G20, like the communiqué for the G8, represents the lack of ambition, the real failure of this whole summit.
Aid agencies were also angry.
There's much more that our leaders could have done from poor countries to represent their constituencies better at this G20 summit.
The Toronto summit hasn't been without its security problems either. Rioting on Saturday led to smashed storefronts and the burning of police cars.
Canada has also been harshly criticized for the billion-dollar-plus price tag, mostly for security, in hosting these summits. For them, the real question remains whether it's all been worth it. Imtiaz Tyab, Al Jazeera, Toronto.